As Claire said, my name's Luke. I'm the founder of Theatre Bath, which is an online network for all things theatre in Bath. I've worked professionally for the last 17 years in the arts in a variety of different roles. This includes the event producer for 2 years for Forest of Imagination, social media and marketing manager for Bath Fringe Festival, venue manager at Birdall's Yard for Bath Spa University, and as a freelance lighting designer and technician at the Rondo Theatre and other venues throughout the Southwest. So I'm here today to give really an overview of what is currently happening in the arts in general, and to give you more updates about companies and venues locally. Now, I'm going to throw quite a few statistics at you and quite a few facts at you. So for that, I apologise in advance. There's quite a bit of information that's been released over the last few weeks that I want to go through. So we'll start by going back to March. All venues were closed when the country entered lockdown. A lot of venue staff were furloughed. A lot more casual staff were not. Many of them fell through the funding support gaps. And on the 26th of June, the government released its 5-step roadmap for reopening theatres. Step 1 was rehearsal and training, but with no audience present. Step 2 was performances for broadcasting and recording, but again, no audiences present at that. Step 3 was outdoor performances with audiences. At the same time, they're planning to try pilots in the West End with limited indoor audiences to see how that works. Step 4, performances are allowed indoors and outdoors. Indoor audiences must remain limited. Step 5, normal performances and audiences resume. So this map was released initially with no dates and no money behind it, which frustrated a lot of us that worked in the arts because we really wanted some kind of key dates to go with. So if we move forwards to July the 5th, the government announced a support package of £1.57 billion for the arts, cultural and heritage sectors. Now, this was £1.15 billion of support for cultural organisations in England, which is going to be delivered through a mix of grants and loans. This will be made up of 270 million of repayable finance and 880 million of grants. Now, 100 million of targeted support was for national cultural institutions in England, and that includes the English Heritage Trust. 120 million capital investment was to restart construction on cultural infrastructure and heritage construction projects within England, many of which were paused due to the coronavirus. And then the new funding also will mean an extra 188 million for what they call the devolved administrations in Northern Ireland, which gets 33 million. Scotland, which will get 97 million, and Wales, which will receive 59 million. Now, at the present time, we still don't know the date when this money will be available, and we don't know what the criteria will be for applying for it. I think it's good to note that even with this investment, more theatres are going to close and more jobs will be lost. That's the reality of the situation that we find ourselves in at the moment. There's currently no specific package for freelancers and casual workers within this pot of money. So full details of the funding, it was announced last week at a webinar I was at, is expected at the end of July. So any time now, hopefully we'll have an announcement about how we can apply for that funding. The job retention scheme is due to run until the end of October, but not beyond that. And the self-employment income support scheme is due to reopen on August the 17th. So hopefully one of us who are self-employed will get an email about that fairly soon. There's still no support for self-employed workers who have fallen through the gaps, but the Theatre Artists Fund has been launched for freelancers who haven't been able to secure funding from anywhere else. Netflix is one of the key partners in that, donating a lot of money. The VAT reduction of 5% runs from the 5th of July until the 12th of January, and this applies to theatre tickets at the point of sale. From the 11th of July, the government announced that outdoor performances could begin again with a socially distanced audience. So that currently puts us at stage 3 of their 5-stage roadmap. From the 25th of July, dance studios can reopen again. Indoor performances are expected to resume from August the 1st, but this relies very heavily on the pilots that are happening in London at the moment being successful and there being no increase in spread of the virus. The government anticipate that stage 5 of the plan, so that's full indoor performances, should be from October this year. The government's released some guidance, which is known in the theatre industry as version 1.0. It's very likely that it will be changed and updated based on the pilots that are coming up in London. All of that can be found on the government website. Now, this guidance, it should be made clear, only applies for professionals, not to amateurs or community theatre groups. And this is because the government believes that there are higher risks involved with amateur or community productions. As yet, there is no specific guidance for smaller venues. All of the guidance so far has been for large-scale theatre, so the big regional theatres and the West End theatres. From the 1st of October, conferences and exhibitions will be allowed to start again. So that's good news for all of us that are attending here. Maybe we'll see each other in person very soon. And at the moment, shows and producers are struggling to get insurance, and this is because of risks of a second spike of or a further outbreak of the virus. Unions like BEC2, Equity, and the Musicians Union are all working very closely at the moment with the government's special task force, and they're asking the government whether they can underwrite the insurance, even if it's just temporarily. Students will be allowed to go back to training, but they will have to do so under very controlled conditions. And it's been indicated that some bigger shows will be ready to go in October. Some will be ready to go at the end of the summer, but all of them will need comprehensive risk assessments. And it's been said that a dedicated COVID officer will now be in place. Hey, Andy. Open air performances have been extended to cover big tops and marquees, so that's good news. So outdoors you can perform in a tent as long as you've got the sides open and there's some more ventilation there. A few tours are planned to restart as drive-throughs or drive-in performances, but on Thursday the 16th of July, Live Nation pulled all of its drive-through performances for fear of localized outbreaks of the virus. So that's kind of a big overview of all the information that we know from DCMS at the moment. Locally, the Theatre Royal announced on Facebook over the weekend that they're not in a position to reopen on August the 1st. The Natural Theatre Company, however, with Andy, who's just popped in there, they are back, they're working, and they're entertaining people at the Roman Baths. So that is really good news. Bath Festivals have announced that they're going to reschedule some events for November, with other events taking place next year. And there are also a lot of museums and attractions which have successfully reopened locally. This isn't an extensive list, but to give you an idea, this includes the American Museum and Gardens, Prior Park, the Bath Skyline, the Roman Baths, the Holborn Museum, Bath Abbey, the sightseeing bus tours, and Bailey Blooms. Pre-booking and allowing extra time for visits is essential, I've been told. So if you're coming, please make sure you check ahead of time. The Little Cinema have planned to reopen on the 31st of July. There's still no date for the Odeon and the Tivoli cinemas. And I'm just going to end this section by kind of looking at the economic benefit of the arts, which I think we all know, so it's kind of a little bit preaching to the converted. But I think it's really important to kind of have a look at these figures and understand them. So theatres contribute 1.28 billion in ticket revenue each year. There are 290,000 workers that are employed by the theatre industry. There are 34 million annual visitors to see theatre shows, and there are 133 million in annual VAT payments from theatres. And currently, 70% of all theatre jobs are at risk, and that's according to UK Theatre and SALT, which is the Society of London Theatre. Now, I think those statistics and those numbers on their own prove beyond all doubt that theatre is an industry and it should be treated just like any other industry. And I think at this point, I'm going to introduce you to Andy Burden of the Natural Theatre Company and bring him in. And we're going to turn this into a little bit of a discussion about kind of where we are at the moment and, you know, how things are with the naturals and how it's been being back working again.
Hi, Luke. Can you hear me?
I can.
Good. I do apologise. I put a little note on during the digital thing saying, wouldn't it be good if we all had a good broadband connection in Bath? And then immediately the broadband broke. So I think I jinxed it. But actually, in all seriousness, I think that is something that Bath could do with people from Bath. It is very unstable in a lot of places of Bath. So thank you for name checking us and saying, you know, we're back at the Roman Baths, which has been a very interesting process, as you said, to go through to perform in a socially distanced way. Although we're not performing, we're doing costumes interpretation because that's not officially allowed. So we are actually allowing visitors to go through the Roman Baths. And I have to say, any locals out there, go to the Roman Baths right now. It's like a sort of elite private viewing. They've done it so well. And we've learned a lot from working with them about how social distancing can work. And it's worth noting that members of the public take a lot of responsibility for it themselves. And I think this is something, as we try to get back to work, and we'd love some of our walking tours to happen soon, there would be a bit of responsibility from the public to keep those socially distanced measures in place. And we've noticed at the Roman Baths, people are very good. One or two people are, but it is the vast minority, and they just need reminding. Then it's, oh, okay. And as long as you build that into the performance. So I'm hoping some of our walkabout tours like Austin Undone or Shakespeare Undone can take place with the various permissions we have to put in, and hopefully we can entertain the public in the way we've been doing for years, but everyone else is trying to do for the first time. But obviously it's integral to what we do. And
you were the first performing arts company really to kind of go back to work, essentially, weren't you?
I think so. There was a group doing shows in car parks, and they were in a bubble. But I'm not sure everyone was paid. All our lot are paid. So I think ours was the first paid performance to go back. And I think one of the things that's very important, you said about 1.4 million or zillion? I mean, the arts gives a lot to this country. It's a huge industry, and it really is. And people have to remember that for 4 months, performers who work for us have been unable to earn money, and not all of them have been able to get the self-employed equivalent of the furlough income. And a lot of people are in a bad shape financially. So it's our duty to ensure that as we get people back, we pay them properly. We've had to make difficult decisions. We've had to very sadly make 2 people from our admin staff redundant. We think that will reflect, the posts have been redundant, it's not the people, because there's going to be less work. So we have to have a little look at new ways of working. So we've used that opportunity, you know, Luke, to make sure we reinvent the organisation.
Brilliant. And kind of, if other people are interested in doing outdoor performance and work and things, is there any way they can kind of share the information and the kind of practices that you've put in place?
You know, we're happy just, you know, to help people. So I think one of the key things is that, and it's been coming up in some of the other sessions, it's not just in the arts, but across the sectors, we have to support each other now. We have to share skills. And I know that goes against any sort of free market capitalism model, because we have to, it sounds like we're sharing our market advantage, but I just think that the market's going to change. So my view is that Bath, look at it in the grand scheme, Bath is an international city. And so if organisations are working with us and we're learning off each other, then we will, of course, oh, sorry, my computer's decided to go now. We will, of course, be able to be first off the blocks.
Yeah.
There was there's an interesting thing this morning, Luke. They're talking about the heritage thing, about people are wanting to come on staycations to the southwest. This is the statistics are there. That's what they want to come. They want to do things in outside spaces. So I think a city like Bath that looks as though it's pretty much back to normal, and an ad hoc bit of information I've got from a personal connection is that the number of Londoners who are wanting to move to Bath suddenly has gone through the roof, because of course we've had low COVID numbers here. I have to say, I think people in this city have been incredibly respectful, really good with the social distancing, walking people have been friendly, really adhering to the regulations. I think it's been very good. But I think this is a world-class city, and you have to remember that. It's not a small town. People come here from all over the world, and whilst those international tourists are going to be slow coming, we know there are people, international tourists, appearing at the Roman baths. How they're getting in, I don't know. People coming from London and so on. So I think that in terms of our city, think of it in the big, global picture, we have got a great offer here. And the Naturals have always worked around the world and around the country. And because of that, we've always had those connections out. And I think right now, Bath is an incredibly good offer. It's a really exciting time for the city. So we would like to work with people. So I think all of us, we have to sort of support each other. We have to share our audiences. If we do Shakespeare Undone, could I suggest that the Theatre Royal and the Rondo promote it at the same time? That everyone said, look, there's an outdoor event happening in Bath. If there's an outdoor concert happening in Bath, that we talk to our mailing list as well as the music festival.
Do you know what I'd love to see? I'd love to see just one brochure for like all the theatre and arts in the whole city. It's just a shared brochure. Everyone's in there. Everyone's equal in their standing in it, but it advertises everything. And I've said for years we need a central website just where everything's funneled through. So any arts event or cultural or heritage, you will go to this one website and you just see everything. So none of this kind of status of you have to pay to be on, you don't have to pay to be on. Just free for everyone. Let's promote the city and let's use the arts to do that.
As you said that, Luke, can you hear like 20 people going out, but I've got a website, because there are about 20 of them. I have to say, the obvious one, and I thought Catherine is fantastic news at Visit Bath and what they're trying to do with that website. Also what Martin Popel, who's going to be talking in the panel after this, what he's done in Destination Bristol. I think those two websites are two that we found success from.
Yes.
That have been very good. So we sort of hope, and they're connected and they're talking to each other anyway.
So it's getting everyone else in the sector to kind of jump on board, essentially. And just come on, let's do this. Let's work together. There's two websites that are there. Let's use them. And like the arts marketing list for Bath, let's exploit it. Let's use it. And, Bristol one's great. I get like an email a day almost from that. But the Bath one's quite quiet. And it's like, no, send me your stuff. I want to know what's going on. I want to know all these things. I want to share. I want to help. But at the moment, it feels like I'm chasing people rather than them chucking stuff at me, if that makes sense.
I think it's really, and I think, yes, that's right. And I think there's also this sort of, there can be information overload. There's also this issue of the organisations feeling if you give your information away, that's it, it's gone. When I was running the Rondo many years ago, when I was your age, Luke, I remember Oriole Hall opened. People said, oh, that's it for the Rondo. And of course it wasn't. It actually was a huge attraction. Lark Hall suddenly became a place to go. When Wickham Social Club opened just opposite the Natural Theatre Company, people said, oh, well, no one's going to hire your studio. Actually, the hires went up because people knew it was the place to come for hire. So I think there is an element, if people know, and Bristol have done this really well. If you know you're coming to this place for art and to which people are coming from, and there's a central place you can come to, that would be great. I mean, we did a thing, Luke, in the film festival, Bath Film Festival. It was our first sort of city tour that was about the story of the city, and we did it in the film festival, going around places that things have been filmed. And we had quite a few tourists turn up on that. They had gone through the link from the then Bath tourism sites to the Bath Film Festival. So when we did it was quite interesting that, there's a festival, oh, I'll go and see that. But when we talked to them afterwards, everybody was saying the same thing, that it was like going through 20 links to get to what was going on.
Yeah, that's definitely the thing, isn't it? It's about simplifying it. It's about the less link clicks as possible. So, you know, bring everything to the front and make it visible.
And I think in the arts, you know, there is a good camaraderie and there's a good amount of collaboration, but there's always that feeling that we're all chasing not many people. Oh, there's only, you know, was it only 10% of the public go to see theatre, therefore we've all got to fight over the 10%. Well, why don't we just try and double it to 20%? And I think where people have, you know, in places, Leeds, for instance, where West Yorkshire Playhouse was part of quite a big, back in the 90s, you know, big effort to bring more audience in, and it worked. And I think where people have worked together, it has got, you know, audiences to come. I think so. One of the things we were saying before we came on, Luke, is that, you know, Bath is this great, it has this great opportunity. It is open for work. It does attract visitors, and I think a lot of the people, a lot of the businesses, and a lot of the people, and the way we benefit from the sport as well, Bath Rugby, we'd be lost without Bath Rugby. Also, the fact people stay and they watch stuff, but we provide stuff for tourists, like the Jane Austen tour that we do. It's largely tourists, but a lot of locals come on it too, and you can benefit from that tourist offer.
Yeah.
So I think if we can realise that this is a cultural city, a city of enjoyment, isn't it? That it always was.
And that's what I've always kind of said is I kind of like the phrase "be a tourist in your own city," and I think that we're very good at sometimes advertising Bath to the wider world, but we sometimes forget to advertise Bath to ourselves and our residents.
Yes.
And actually, they're here already. We don't have to fight for them. You know, they're on our doorstep. So we just need to find a way of engaging with them and getting them involved in the kind of the things that we're doing.
I think if there is, I mean, there's some statistic, and I'm sure I can't actually see the chat going up here at the moment because I seem to be on the backstage page, Luke. I don't know where it is, but I think there is some. I think some statistic that a lot of the visitors of Bath come and they visit friends, and that they're staying with people. So of course the locals are part of that visitor experience anyway, and come and see my brilliant city. You know?
Yeah.
I think one of the things we also took, I mean, obviously we were talking about the fact that the, you know, the theatres are going to be operating on a third capacity. And I said, well, a lot of the shows I go and see, they're operating on a third capacity anyway, because I tend to like quirky things. But I mean, in all seriousness, you know, it's going to be a bespoke experience like the Roman Baths is. You know,
no, you're absolutely right.
Grab your tickets to I've gone to Edinburgh and been one of 3 people in the audience and have the best time ever. You know, it's a good experience. Don't feel you have to go when anyone else can.
Yeah, and I think you say that. Sort of, I saw live stream the first live performance at the Minich the other night, and all of their shows are pretty much sold out. They've launched their season in a week, and the appetite is definitely there. And you know, they are looking at it like that. It's a unique experience. It's almost a VIP experience because you're getting pretty much the whole theatre to yourselves. And you know, economically, it's not great, but it's only hopefully going to be till October, so it's like 3 months.
I think, that's right. And I think I mean, what we've said at the Naturals, I had a board meeting on Friday. And my thing was, let's get through to next year, and any income we earn in the meantime will just see us through. We've penned this massive red mark on this year for the amount of money we're going to lose, and we're very lucky we own the building. We can borrow against it or whatever. And in a way, next year will be the tricky time for us because we have to build on it. But I think, yes, it is like all these things, seeing it as an opportunity. And I don't know if you agree, Luke, that I think the theatre world has done itself a little bit of a disservice. There's been a lot of sort of, oh, it's all going to be hell. And you're like, from people who are quite wealthy, big producers, and the National and so on, well, you're going to be all right if you're core funded anyway. But I think it's going to be very tricky. It's going to be challenging. And I think that arts organisations have to start being businesslike and thinking very carefully about their business model.
And actually, they need to just start thinking creatively. And this is the key thing. We're creative organisations. So let's look at what we can do. So, you know, if the theatre has to be empty, use it for something else. Let's, you know, open up as a bar in the main auditorium. You know, there's
well, you and I have spent many times in empty theatres, sometimes working together, and it's a joy. People, I always said that's why I took up directing, because I'm 6'5", so I could sit with my feet over the row in front. Don't know if they're going to allow that, but I think, yeah, I think the other thing is also about that business model. I don't know if you agree. I think we have to also make sure. We've been approached by 3 people already saying, "Would you work for free?" So how am I going to? I've got to pay my performers. They've earned nothing for 4 months, and we have to be part of the economy. We have to be part of the money working, rather than, oh, let's get a bit of arts in. We'll help them. Yeah, I remember being somebody in Bath coming up to me and saying, "I've got this great project, but would you do it for free? It'd be good for you." And I went, "Today I just signed off a week on the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. I don't need to work for free." You know, I think there is a sense of understanding how important we are. We're part of the economy. We do need to be paid for. The artists have just had the most horrific time, freelance time, and we need to be. People need to find the money. They'll find the money for the toilets or the PPE or whatever, but we need to get the economy going. And I think this is sometimes Bath's problem, is that there's a lot of entrepreneurs, there's a lot of brilliant, lovely people wanting to do good things, and so, oh, we'll do it anyway. I mean, that's why the Arts Council, I've always said that's why the Arts Council don't fund Bath very much, because it's going to happen anyway, because someone will find a way of making it happen. So I think somehow, I don't know how we do that, Luke, but we have to say, I think it's been good. Things like the Rondo have got that money through their appeal, which has been fantastic, hasn't it? Yeah. Great. Obviously, you know, much as I don't run it anymore, I want it to succeed still. And we haven't put out an appeal because I didn't think it was necessary. I thought other people could do with that money. But I think there's been huge amounts of support. And I'd like to see, you know, if we can work with businesses doing a promotion event, even if some, you know, 5 businesses are in an event and they all put, you know, 100 quid into the pot, we could probably do something with that.
Yeah, no, and I think you're right. I think we need to change the way we talk about the arts as well. It's kind of, it is a business. It's a business like any other business, and we need to be paid, those of us that are working on it. I mean, backstage it's not quite as bad as actors, because I think it's 88% of backstage people are in work at any one time, when it's 88% of actors that are out of work or something like that. It's probably huge. Right, but even so, I keep getting people kind of saying, so and so is doing this cheaper. Can't you do this cheaper? And I'm like, no, I've been doing this 17 years now. What I charge is what I charge. It's, you know, it is my business. This is my livelihood. And you know, I feel especially for those that did fall through the funding gap, you know, because they've had pretty much nothing. You know, some of them are just struggling to get by at the moment.
We didn't get the Arts Council money, which we applied for. We were very lucky. Baines have been fantastic. We got the business support grant, and we've had obviously our rates. We are a charity, so we were paying minimal rates anyway, but those have been reduced. They also put me in contact with a training day, which I did with Lloyds Bank. That was very, very good. We were very lucky that we got a Heritage Lottery grant about a week before the lockdown, so there's going to be a big participation project there, which has been delayed obviously, but yeah, I think there are a lot of people falling through the gaps, but we have to make sure my plea is to everybody, please don't just go and say, oh, let's get students in it, they'll do it for free, because they won't have an industry to work in. No. Yeah, we want to get students, and it wants it to be a participation project. Someone like us or the Theatre Royal can help broker that and work and make sure it's good and just do it properly.
Lift everyone else up. I think it's up to the bigger organisations to actually lift everyone. It's about putting the ladder down for the people that are coming back up again. That's where I see it.
Yeah.
Guys, I'm going to interrupt you now, and say do carry this on in your breakout session that you're going to be hosting now, Luke, in the...
I don't have anything else to say.
Well, hopefully other people will come and join in, because they're all chatting on the chat bit. Yeah, we're getting lots of us been saying this for years. Bath needs one website for the events and the arts, someone else, not with advertising, and it's all coming out. So I think there's a lot to learn about, and I think it is, as you say, the industry needs more investment, not less investment. People need to actually pay as well, rather than think everything can be done for free. As a freelancer for years, I know that one. Okay, so you guys are going to head over to the breakout session.